30 years Alberta can get the cup. I think it's 30.
I think Montreal was the last team together, last Canadian team.
When was Edmonton? That was back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, Edmonton was in the
Yeah.
80s for sure. Montreal got it in the 90s sometime.
Hence the word Alberta. With Edmonton, that was back. There you go. Word Alberta.
1990.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone and call the regular town council meeting of June 24th of 2024 to order at 5 p.m. We have the agenda in front of us. Are there any changes to the agenda? Mr. Murphy?
Nothing from us.
Okay. Mr. Ford?
Yes, your worship, I would like to see item number 8 under new business moved to the front of the agenda under old business, as that's something we have discussed in council before. Also, my understanding is we'll have some members of the public that will be showing up for that topic.
Well, unfinished business by definition means that it was left over from the last meeting and not finished at that point in time. So does it follow that?
I do believe so, because administration did bring us a briefing note that we accepted for information, and then my notice of motion was right after.
So we dealt with the notice of motion, however, this is not dealing with the notice of motion per se. But council, what is somebody's, Mr. Ford, you want to bring this to where?
Either under unfinished business, or I'd like to move it to the front of new business, whatever the mayor's choice is.
Well, the mayor's choice might be different than yours.
Are those two?
Councillor Good.
Yeah, I would think moving it to the front of new business would be reasonable, because that's basically keeping it in the proper place as it is. I do believe that new business is more appropriate just on procedure, but I don't have a problem, because we've done that before when people have come to a meeting where we move things ahead. That's historically something we have done to accommodate people in the audience, et cetera. So I don't have a problem with that, but I'd like to see it moved. I'll make a motion, we move it to new business. First item in new business.
Ms. Parsons? We have a motion, so we vote on the motion. Is that what this is part of things we do?
As an amendment to the agenda.
Okay, so you're moving to adopt the agenda with the amendment that the new business item 8 be moved to new business item 1.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, also, I do believe that there was supposed to be an addition for closed session for discussion of Apex
I think that
contract.
it could be as a result of our discussions, so it needs to wait. And then we do it within, because it's something that's
I
come
don't
up.
understand that though. How can an item be added to a closed session if it's not added at the beginning of the agenda? So I don't think you can add it midway through the,
Sometimes as a result of the discussion, you need to move into more closed as a result of the discussion too. It's not known, so
Let's
so
get
it may come up.
an opinion from our parliamentarian.
Ms. Parsons.
So, yes, that would have been administration's intention, because part of the conversation will be held in open session, and then council will have the ability to move into closed session to receive further information. They choose to do that.
Okay, Mr. Good, something new? Yep.
Yeah, historically, because any kind of negotiations are always held in closed session. The reasons for looking at something are in open session, because basically it, but there are contractual information that are also should be discussed in closed session, so I think that would be the reason for doing it that way.
Okay, we've got,
So just so I understand correctly, so my understanding is that we do not have to have the contract specifically on the agenda, that it will come up as after the discussion.
So during administration's presentation, it will be recommended that council table the remainder of the discussion until the closed session portion, so that they can continue those discussions and review of the business proprietary information in closed. And then you would table it afterwards and would finish any of your public discussion and decision.
Hey, thank you.
okay, so there's one other item. It happens to be new business item 5. Regional Energy Committee member appointment. This too needs to move to after an item in closed because it refers to a term of reference that all council has not been privy to as yet. So it'll come up and it just needs to move so that we officially have it there. So how should I do that, Ms. Parsons?
Well, we could simply just move that entire item to closed session. It is already in closed session, as it was my understanding at the time of publishing the agenda that they were 2 different discussions. But I think I misinterpreted that, so we could simply we could delete it from the agenda and just have that discussion during the closed session portion. Or we can have a brief public discussion about it and move into closed session later. For the other topic, it's at your discretion.
Okay, so I think, yeah, in terms of time and whatnot, I think it's probably easier if the closed session on that item comes up first, and if there's a resulting motion following out of closed, that we just deal with it then.
So it would be my
So-
recommendation to just delete it then.
Okay. Okay, so, yes,
Because I have a motion on the floor
Yes.
to have could we not amend? Again, I'm gonna ask a question. Could we not amend it to have that item that you're talking about removed from the portion of the agenda because it is available and closed, am I correct? And then a motion would arise, so we can do 2 amendments. 1 to move number 8 to number 1, and then 2 to delete the item. To delete item 5. And then that, if I make that motion, then it takes care of both, am I correct? Thank you. But that's my motion.
okay. This is an interesting challenge toward the beginning of the meeting here. Okay, any further, yeah. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Everybody understands it. To move the agenda as amended. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have the minutes of the June 10th regular council meeting. You've had an opportunity to review those. Are there any edits that someone is thinking of suggesting? Otherwise, I would accept a motion. Deputy Mayor?
I can move that the council adopt the minutes of the June 10th, 2024 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried. Public hearings, we don't have any. So now we're into presentations. So I see several in our audience could be presenting. So we just ask that when you come forward to the 3 chairs there, that you turn on the microphone so it stays red. You announce who you are and you keep your presentation pretty concise. We do have your full application in our briefing notes. So first up, we have grants to organizations, the Peace River Boating Association.
Yeah. Evening, everyone. I'm Felix Bergeron with the Peace River Boarding Association. I have a short little presentation about our association and our ongoings for this year. Excuse me, could you just turn your mic on? Oh, sorry. Yeah. That's better. Oh. So we're the Peace River Boarding Association, nonprofit organization, consists of the board of directors, members, subcommittees. Our mission is to maintain, improve, and develop 2 boat launch facilities in the town of Peace River, which are used by residents in the surrounding communities, counties, and beyond. Our vision is to establish a welcoming environment for individuals and families who share a passion for various forms of river boating and other river activities. I'm the president. We have Blair Bambush as vice president, treasurer is Sabrina Bamping, Kale Steed, the secretary, Kyle Pedluck, director, Sean Arsenault, and we have probably about 70 to 80 on and off members. So our core initiatives are the Peace River boat launches, Herb Sets Memorial Poker Rally, the Peace River Gold Cup, and community collaborations include the Peace River Rotaract River Days this year. Graham Flats is a property that it's a rec lease that we have. It's on northern Sunrise County, about 40 kilometers south or north of town, sorry. Then Jet Boat Racing Canada website now to promote Jet Boat Racing, but it's a new edition this year. And the 2025 World Jet Boat Championships will be coming to Peace River next year. So we're starting to organize that. And town of Peace River boat launches. So the North End boat launch, we've been kind of on and off working with town of Peace River, the federal government, Small Crafts and Harbors, Department of Fisheries and Oceans. I did have a meeting with RMLA Dan Williams a couple weeks ago, and just looking for some support from the provincial government, and he was going to reach out to our MP Arnold Gerson and have a meeting with them to see where the federal government is at with that boat launch. Seems like they're kind of dragging their heels on what's going on there. So Dan was super excited to be part of it. I guess he's a pretty good promoter of the Peace region. He has the Minister of Tourism, Joe Shao, coming to Peace River on August 7th. And he wants us to take him out on the river and kind of show us what we've done in our ongoing projects. So should be okay. Dan is, he's the, or not Dan, sorry, Joe is the Minister of Tourism. So they're both fairly excited to come to Peace River. The West Beach boat launch and dock facilities. So in 2022 and 2023, we did a lot of work there. Construction of the dock was finalized and it was subsequently placed in the water last year. We did some landscaping and landscaping was conducted to prepare for winter storage. Furthermore, the approach was expanded to ensure safer entry and exit of the boat launch, and a new pad was put in. This year, there's going to be a guardrail installed and some signage to kind of delineate the road, the approach going in and out. It's not real easy to see when you're coming into that location now. We're not with all the trees gone. So we will be installing a guardrail there. And I know the town is putting pavement down on the ramp going up over the dike on the west side. So yeah, for 2024. So the Peace River Gold Cup is in 2 weeks. It's our annual jet boat race. It's brought teams and spectators from all across Alberta, British Columbia, and Northwest Territories. In the past events, it even brought teams and spectators from the United States, Mexico, and New Zealand. 2025, we will be hosting the World Jet Boat Championship. Originally, it was supposed to be started in Hay River, and we were supposed to have like a Tuesday and a Wednesday. It was supposed to start on the 21st of June and for summer solstice in Hay River, but it sounds like Hay River is backing out. They're not able to put it together. So likelihood is it'll start in Peace River. It'll be the opening ceremony on the Friday. That I can't remember exactly the date, but around the summer solstice date. So. And then so we'll have races on Saturday and Sunday again in Peace River, which works good for if we want to do River Days again in collaboration. I don't know if they're going to be willing to move their date, but we'll see how well the event works this year. I know they were pretty excited to work with us on an event together. So it helps build the exposure and the profile of the region. Funds from the event go towards maintaining the town of Peace River boat launches. The Peace River Gold Cup and the Jet Boat Circle Tour page on Mighty Peace Tourism's website is one of the most visited pages on their site, over 110,000 views last year. Multiple videos from the Peace River Gold Cup seem to go viral at each event, increasing awareness for the sport and the region. So the dates for the Peace River Gold Cup are July 5th to 7th. And then, yeah, the championships next year, are June 20th to the 29th. So we'd have probably 3 or 4 days in Peace River, depending on what happens in Hay River, which we have a meeting on Thursday this week to kind of finalize that. So either will be 2 days in Peace River or 4 days if Hay River doesn't happen. There's a small video from that was put together from the events from last year. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just music, so it's not much. There's some, I don't know how to get the volume.
I think the computer speakers are moving.
Probably okay with pictures.
Okay. We had 18 boats last year, which is kind of lower numbers than we've had in the past. But it seems like after 2 years of no races during the COVID period, a lot of racers never got back in their boats, so we're still trying to grow those numbers. In 2019, at the last World Championships in Canada, we had 65 boats. So we got a ways to go before we get to there, but we're expecting 35 to 40 for next year's World Championship. Along with the Peace River Gold Cup, our direct economic impact to the region is over $1 million a year. From when we add up, there's about 250 local jet boaters between Peace River, Grimshaw, and Northern Sunrise, Northern Lights. And we kind of ran a survey on how much money they spend a year, whether it's fuel, jet boat repairs, or, you know, camping gear. Direct economic impact is over $1 million to the town. So it's a substantial amount, and the Herb Setz Memorial Poker Rally will be held the end of August. We haven't confirmed a date yet. We're still waiting. We helped the Setz family organize it, and they haven't confirmed a date yet. Last year, there was 40 boats that attended, sold over 100 hands, 9 free hands to children. About 80 people attended dinner and over 100 people voting that day. And $1,200 of the proceeds got donated to the Peace River SPCA. Their year-round marketing strategy, so we try to promote river tourism online, highlighting river tourism operators, highlighting the town of Peace River and the surrounding area. So we have on Instagram and Facebook are continuously promoting boating in the region. So our Graham Flats projects, this old gazebo has been there since the 80s, and it was really kind of left unused, and there's only a few people using it every year, and it's kind of started to look like we're gonna lose it. So we spent some money there this year. We kind of mowed the grass, built some picnic tables, put a new roof on it, sanded it all down, and give it a fresh coat of stain. So now it looks like a nice usable spot, and people have been using it again, from canoers to hunters to boaters. You can only get there by boat right now. There's no real trail to get in from ATVs or nothing like that. So it's strictly for river users, and it's right on the side of the river. Our Jet Boat Circle Tour, we can visit on our website online. It just basically promotes all the races from Grand Prairie, Peace River, and Taylor. Just gives everybody an idea of where to stay when they're in those towns, where to eat, other things to do, just tourism in general to promote that. That's on Mighty Peace Tourism's website. So that's kind of our organization in a nutshell. And I've presented to the communities around, and we always look to see if we can get some support. Currently, we've had support last year from Travel Alberta. We got a grant again from them this year to help promote our event. And the surrounding communities usually give us money, but 75% of our money comes from the local businesses that advertise for our event. They also give us money, so that's where most of our funds come from.
Great. So essentially, your grants to organizations application is to help with the Gold Cup event, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillors, do you have questions? Councillor Ford?
Not a question, but, like I've been involved with, boat races in a number of years, but last year was my first year as a support boat. And the experience was absolutely incredible. This year I'm going back in as a support boat, and I know, Mr. Fisher is coming along with me, and hopefully Mr. Mugford's gonna join as well, so look forward to it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Without the local support, usually we get about 20 support boats. We've put them all along the river for help in case of an emergency. And yeah, without you guys, we definitely can't put the event on, so we appreciate it.
Any further questions? Okay, so what happens now is we thank you for your presentation, and a little further along in our agenda, we have further discussion about awarding of the finances, put it that way.
Thank you.
So you'll know shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next presentation is the Peace Country Rugby Club.
Thank you for having me, your worship, councillors, Peace River Town. I'm here on behalf of the Peace Country Rugby Club, and we've put in a request for startup funds for this nonprofit club. We feel it will be building a physically connected community. Our goals. The goal is to provide an opportunity for local youth to participate in the sport of rugby. For the past 3 school rugby seasons, there has been a U16, U18 female team. And this season there was a high school male team as well. The girls team did really well this year. They, because of all the hard work of the volunteer coaches and our high school coaches, they placed second in the province in sevens. And so they did very well. The students involved were from the Peace River Public and separate school systems from Grimshaw, Manning, Fairview, and also from Blair and McLennan area. The new club will provide the opportunity for athletes to play club rugby locally, which follows after the school season. And so you can see that we've asked for, money or funds that would really help the club be able to pay for director's insurance for the nonprofit executive that's going to be running it. Those startup costs are expensive, just even the banking fees, and because you need dual signage and whatnot, even the checks are costing quite a lot of money to pay for from the bank. And I think we're off to a really good start, and the goal of Peace Country Rugby is to make sure that this is a sport that's available to anyone in the area. It's very affordable. We're going to keep our costs really low. We're going to use existing infrastructure in the town. And I think it's just a really good way to build that community for young folks. And I'd be willing to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. So councillors? Deputy Mayor?
Is there a league? Did you say there was a league, like a league of rugby league?
Good question. Yeah, so rugby in the world, it's usually there's a club in the area, but it also syncs really well with all the schools, the separate system, public system, the Francophone system. And so kids will go in between both. It's really what we like to do with rugby is to start the kids younger. And so there's no school sports with younger rugby. So the club would start, as young as kids that are even 6 years old, can start playing rugby. And you get them active and moving and, supported in the sport. It's really not a very expensive sport to play. And then our high school teams will obviously do fairly well in the area because of that, exposure to rugby at the earlier ages. But rugby clubs actually, in the province of Alberta and throughout the world, they have young members, and up to 100 years old. So they take in the whole community. And really what the club does is try to support travel for high school teams or club teams and whatnot. Right now, there's girls and boys from the two high school systems went on, and there's a provincials now outside of sports. It's called the ARC tournament. It's down in Lethbridge this year, and so there's representation from the area in that tournament. Team Canada will be there to watch for kids, and the Western League coaches will be there to pick kids from that area. And there could be Peace River kids playing in Manitoba in the Western Finals. So it's a great way to expose kids to lifelong sport. It builds community. It also helps them get into university. So.
I was asking, I was part of the group that brought the Pee Wee football to town. And we had to do that in 3 weeks and start from scratch. So I
Yeah.
understand what you're going through, and I'd love personally to see more rugby.
And Councillor Shannon, we're really working closely with football. We think it's an augmenting sport because it's at different times of the year. So we think we have a really good partnership with the football in the area. Yeah.
And just one last thing to add, I wish Felix was still here, but I've been dealing with a lot of developers and investors lately. And my last one, the first question they had was, what kind of sports and nonprofits do you have in your town? So that would be a really good, especially if we're bringing them in from outside the community and outside the province. I think rugby would be quite something that would attract people.
It's a world sport, so people are very familiar with it from when they move here. I think it'll be a great thing to have in the area. That's for sure.
Councillor Carr?
Who would they compete against? Would they have to travel all the way to Edmonton or Grand Prairie, or are there other teams in their region here?
So at the high school level, most of the teams that we play against they're all over the province. So there's a lot of travel. So there is travel involved in the separate system. Because we take kids from all over and really help us out with the bus. So thank you very much. But Grand Prairie has clubs. They have many different high school clubs, but then they have a club as well. And it actually formed many years, decades ago, because the first club in the area was actually in Peace River, and then it moved to Grand Prairie. And then there's rugby union throughout the province. I mean, Alberta, Edmonton is the sort of the mecca, but then there's Calgary and Lethbridge, and then Okotoks and on and on. I was lucky enough to be the manager for the zone area for the summer games, and there's rugby all over this province. Yeah. Mhm.
Any further questions?
Not a question, just more of a comment. So I'm glad you brought up football. I've been involved for many years. In football, we have 4 different age groups now. And as Councillor Shannon had mentioned, it was only high school at one time, then they brought in Bantam, then they brought in Pee Wee. And now we actually have an Adam League, which started last year. But the nice thing about rugby, totally different sport. I have no idea what the rules are, but it's played at a different time of football. So it's another sport to keep the kids busy, to keep them active and keep them off the street, keep them doing something. So I like that.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Murray. And as I said before, we'll be discussing this a little later and trying to hand out some monies.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Banzer. I really appreciated the invitation.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, third one up, we have Glen Mary School.
Hello, thanks for having us. My name is Darren Flynn and this is Brad Harrop. We were awarded, Glen Mary School was awarded 2A boys volleyball provincials for November 24, so it's November 21st to the 23rd. This tournament will have 12 teams, so 11 teams from all over the province and our host team as well from Glenmurray School. So you're looking at, over 200 people coming to town, using our hotels and eating at restaurants and visiting. We're using Glenmurray School as well as Peace High for the tournament. So we'll have 2 full court gyms going at the same time, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so we're asking for some money for incidentals, I guess, part of hosting, even though it's a ASAA, Alberta Schools Athletic Association event. They have provincial sponsors like Subway and Milk and so on. They don't really give us any funding to cover any of those costs, such as we do player gift bags and we do banners for the teams as mementos to keep. What else? We do volunteer T-shirts for the staff and parents who are, so they can be identified, I guess, during the event for help. So that's kind of what we're asking for. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
That's pretty good to get basketball one year and volleyball
Yeah,
next year.
we're very fortunate.
Yeah.
We gotta be careful what we wish for. It, you
Yes.
know, we know the work involved, but we have a lot of the same staff is still at our school, so we're hoping it'll run smoothly as basketball did.
Well, there's always learning curves too,
Yeah.
from the past, yeah. Counselors, Counselor Ford, a question?
More of a comment.
Well, again.
I'm probably gonna date myself here, but I was involved the last time you hosted, which was a number of years ago, but the amount of kids and the amount of families that came to town was absolutely incredible then.
Yeah, it's a great way to showcase our school and our town. We're very proud to do that.
That was 2009,
Thanks.
and Oren was the DJ for our event, so.
Did a great
It
job.
went fabulous, yeah.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
My question is, the 200, is that participants or, the amount of people that are coming?
I'm guessing it'll be well over 200, but we have, like I said, 11 out of town teams. Usually each team has about 12 players. And on top of that, you have your coaching staff and then parents. So yeah, you're looking at,
It will be well over because that's the participants.
Yeah.
About 15 per team and then followers and
So
Yeah, because it does make a difference to economic development in town.
A lot of-
Filling up everything.
a
It
lot of
does.
parents attend provincials and,
Lots.
yeah, so.
and an example is just for our teams, we have 55 room block booked already for this event, and I'm sure it'll be probably double that.
So, I should have mentioned earlier, but later on in our agenda, there's a EDC or Economic Development Committee minutes. And I noticed within those minutes, Deputy Mayor, that there is a tournament package that the committee is organizing. So do you want to maybe just tell us a little bit about that?
I would actually ask Director Bell, because I believe that is something you and our chair is working on.
Yes. So we're not quite ready yet.
Maybe by next November,
But
you will.
possibly by this November. So what we're looking at doing is having tournament packages available for host organizations such as the school. It would include coupons and information of where people can go locally for food, restaurants, that kind of thing. And the intent is sort of twofold. It's also hoping to inform our local businesses of when these events come to the community, because we do hear that from our local restaurants. They're not always in the know, and they find out when they get a booking for 12 teams showing up at their local restaurant. So it's sort of trying to provide double purpose there. We're gonna use the new town website as the central repository of all the information, and user groups will be asked to sort of apply so we can get your information and put it on the website, and then we pass along those packages. You've probably seen it at many tournaments where you get a little package for each team where they get coupons for each of the participants. So, and just a note, I was a parent that traveled to provincials, and we come in droves. So a local hosting body, like a school bringing in a tournament at a provincial level, you'll see double the amount of parents following those kids, right? Because it's a once in a life, maybe twice in a lifetime opportunity for those families. So it's double the 200 for sure. Yeah.
It's a big deal for these
Yeah.
teams that qualify for sure.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of having somewhere that we can notify
Mhm.
everyone in town, the businesses of what's happening when.
Okay, so thank you and good luck with the tournament and we'll be in touch
Thank you
later
very
on.
much.
Okay, next up, we're into the bylaws section. We have bylaw number 2158, the land use bylaw number 1891 amendment, redistricting of the Shasberry settlement lot 38. And Mr. Fisher's gonna speak to this one.
Good evening, your worship and council. So this one's kind of sort of an administrative item. We were approached by the owner of the subject lot earlier this year. And they want to kind of finish up their existing gravel operations and start looking towards kind of cleaning it up a little bit. And when we were going through the file as administration, we realized they didn't actually have a development permit for the site. So we need to kind of find a way to bring them into compliance, the cleanest way forward, because there's not actually an ability to approve this on the existing zoning, is to rezone the property to a direct control district. And that would allow the company and the property owner to submit a development permit to kind of bring their operations into compliance and wrap things up. We've only really included one option on here, that we give the bylaw first reading to redistrict the site. It allows us to schedule a public hearing for the property, allows us to do advertising notification of affected residents, and in this case, it would include all of those people in Shasberry Estates, in addition to the immediately adjacent properties, just because of proximity. It also allows us to send referrals to the counties as part of our intermunicipal development framework. Legislatively, an applicant would have the right to be heard and their application for amendment be considered, which includes public hearing, where everyone can bring their concerns forward. So our recommendation would be that council give first reading to bylaw 2158, which amends the land use bylaw 1891 by redistricting Shasberry settlement lot 38 from residential 1A district R1A to direct control district DIRC.
Thank you. So the MD would be notified because it's in that area, okay, as well as the residents in the MD and in Shasberry Estates? Or how?
Yes,
Yeah.
so the immediately adjacent property owners,
Mhm.
the people who own property in Shasberry Estates, we would post a notice on our social media webpage. I think we're required to print a copy and put it out on the bulletin outside. And I think we would notify not only the MUPs, but County of Northern Lights and Northern Sunrise County as well.
Okay, would someone care to put forth a motion for first reading, which then allows the process to carry on, including public engagement and so forth?
Sure. I'll move the council give first reading to bylaw number 2158, which amends land use bylaw number 1891 by redistricting Shasberry settlement lot 38 from residential 1A district to direct control district.
Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor of that motion? Great, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay, next up, we have bylaw number 2159, the repeal of bylaw number 2114, a debenture bylaw for the purchase of a fire hall, and Mr. Mumford is speaking to this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So an issue is the repeal of bylaw 2114, debenture bylaw for purchase of a fire hall. Bylaw 2114 was adopted to allow the town to incur indebtedness by the issuance of debenture in the amount of $900,000 for the purchase of a fire hall on the west side of town. The purchase did not proceed and the town did not issue a debenture for the amount approved in bylaw 2114. There are no immediate plans for the purchase or construction of a new fire hall. As such, the bylaw should be repealed. So the options for council are to give first, second, and third reading bylaw 2159, repeal of bylaw 2114, venture bylaw for the purchase of a fire hall. And again, the advantage is just would repeal a bylaw that's no longer needed. Option 2 would be to decline to give first, second, and third reading to bylaw 2159, and there's no advantages to that. It would just keep a bylaw active that's not in use. Recommendation from administration is council give first, second, and third reading to bylaw 2159, repeal of bylaw 2114, to venture bylaw for the purchase of fire hall.
That was very concise. Thank you. Okay, so as Mr. Mugford has informed us, the town is wishing to repeal a bylaw that was going to borrow 900,000 for the purchase of a fire hall. And that has been decided that it's no longer needed at this point in time. So would someone care to move us to first reading, and then we'll have some questions? Councilor Ford.
Thank you, Your Worship. I put a motion on the floor to give first reading to bylaw 2159, repeal of bylaw 2114, to venture bylaw for the purchase of a fire hall.
Okay, any questions at this point? All those in favor? It is carried. You, would someone care to move us further along with?
I'll move second reading to bylaw 2159, repeal of bylaw 2114, to venture bylaw for the purchase of fire hall.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, would someone care to move us further along this process?
Put a motion on the floor to allow bylaw 2159 to go to third reading.
Discussion on that motion. All those in favor? It is carried. Someone else perhaps like to move the next one, the third reading?
I'll move the council give third reading to bylaw 2159, repeal of bylaw 2114, to venture bylaw for the purchase of fire hall.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Thank you, Mr. Mugford. It is done. Okay, unfinished business, we don't have any. New business, we are looking at the item 8, which is Apex security proposals, and Mr. Mugford and Mr. Scammerhorn is giving indication he is leaving the room. So, Mr. Mugford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So topic is the notice of motion on the Apex proposal. On April 8th, Apex Security presented to council regarding their public security unit services. On May 1st, representatives from Apex met with administration to discuss the contents of the presentation, some of the challenges the town has been facing regarding crime and homelessness, and what solutions Apex could offer. A written proposal was received on May 8th, with subsequent information sent on May 31st and in early June. Administration intended to complete a detailed analysis of these proposals and bring that report to council for the July meeting. And on June 10th, 2024, Councilor Ford moved that council direct administration to bring the Apex security business proposal to the next council meeting for discussion. And this motion was carried. So a bit of background. The current community policing budget. So the town's policing services are contracted through the RCMP. This represents a substantial portion of the town's policing/community policing budget, approximately $2.6 million in 2024. In addition to this, the town budgeted for a director of protective services and one full-time community police officer position. The Director of Protective Services was a new addition to the 2024 budget, and recruitment is still underway. The intention is to fill this role with an individual who has policing and emergency management experience, so they may provide administrative oversight to the fire department, while also having the appropriate background to build us a robust CPO program. The CPO position is currently vacant and is intended to be filled once the program is developed. Bylaw enforcement has been addressed primarily by the fire chief and supported by myself. There is no budgeted amount for additional contracted services in the 2024 budget. Apex proposal content. So Apex Security has provided the town with several proposals that they feel will address public safety concerns our community has been experiencing recently. Council will have the opportunity to review the full proposal in closed section in accordance with section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party. However, a summary is provided. So proposal 1. The Public Security Unit, PSU, would provide patrol services for the town of Peace River and would include provision of their own trained security staff and conduct patrols, equipment, office space for their employees to utilize, marked patrol vehicles and incidentals related to the vehicles, and dispatch center to direct security calls. This proposal requires a multi-year agreement and includes 4 pricing options depending on level of service selected. So full coverage is 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it was in the $1 million range. Seasonal coverage was 365-day coverage, 24-hour-a-day coverage during the peak months, and then 12-hour-a-day during the slower months, which are in your November to April, November to May, that range. So that was approximately $800,000 a year, and then full coverage with reduced hours. So that was full year coverage at 12 hours a day, and that was in the $550,000 range. Subsequent to receipt of proposal 1, there was an addendum, and Apex, understanding the town's budget constraints, would be opening to providing this at a reduced minimum monthly term until such time that the 2025 budget has been determined. So they've expressed some flexibility in terms of the length of the contract. Pros of the proposal is the addendum reduces the commitment term for 2024. And the visible security presence throughout the community may act as a deterrent for criminals. Cons of the proposal is it's an unbudgeted cost, and the PSU has minimal enforcement authority and would rely on the RCMP or town appointed officials once we reestablish our CPO, which could create some redundancy. Proposal 2. So the second proposal was contracted security officers would provide bylaw enforcement services for the town, which would include 1 trained security officer, equipment, office space for the employee to utilize, and dispatch center to direct calls. The town would be responsible for the provision of bylaw training, vehicle incidentals, and materials. This proposal would be a 5-month contracted term, and the coverage would be 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, at approximately $125,000 a year. Pros of this proposal is it's a lower cost than the first proposal, and it would have the authority to enact a town's bylaw. Cons is the bylaw enforcement is typically a service that's provided in-house, which gives the town complete oversight and authority over bylaw services. Services are not provided by the PSU. So again, the PSU it's more visible, and the PSU is a 2-person team in contrast to what this proposal is, which would just be 1 person that would strictly be doing bylaw enforcement. And proposal 3. So proposal 3 is like proposal 1 in the coverage options, but they also identified the PSU would undertake training to become appointed as CPOs for the town, which would then give them greater authority to act on behalf of the town. So the costing options were similar as proposal 1, but with the additional cost for the town required to provide that CPO training. So the pros, like same as in proposal 1, but with increased enforcement ability of the PSU. The costs, again, higher unbudgeted costs. Unclear who is responsible for future CPO training should there be staff turnover, with no ability to influence employee satisfaction. And even with the proposal addendum, the town would need to commit to a term above the monthly minimum to receive the full benefit of providing that training. Also, an increased level of service would anticipate increased salary costs, so without increased contract costs to support this, employee retention risk significantly increased due to compensation for trained CPOs. Else increased risk for reduced service levels due to reduced corporate profit. So those are the three proposals received, summarized. Funding options, so the town did not budget for any funds in 2024 to support any service level increases. While there have been unanticipated vacancies in the director and CPO positions, these vacancies are not sufficient. If we take the total amount that we would have paid for those roles, it's not sufficient to fund the cost of the Apex proposals. So some of the options that could be used to fund 2024 include service level reductions elsewhere within the organization, elimination of planned capital spending, draws on reserve. And I'll note that the public safety reserve balance would not be sufficient to fully fund this proposal, but it would be an option to potentially draw on that, and debt financing. If the contract was to extend beyond 2024, there would be a requirement to fund the increased costs to ensure the budget is balanced, and options for that would include an increase to the municipal requisition. So a 1% increase in our municipal requisition is approximately $110,000 of revenue. So to put that in terms, $1 million increase on our municipal requisition for the town would result in approximately a $330 annual tax increase for a residential property assessed at $350,000. So, you know, 350 isn't, it's not an average number, it's a number that we picked to select to show what the impact would be for that taxpayer. Other options to fund it for future year budgets would be increasing to other fees, so potentially increasing business license fees, things of that nature. Reduction in service levels in other parts of the organization, and reduction in capital expenditure. So all of these things come with pros and cons, and should be weighed. Some other considerations. Administration did not receive any direction previously from council to actively seek out contracted services to supplement the RCMP. The PSU proposal received from Apex was unsolicited. Administration has not engaged our typical procurement process. They're going out for a request for proposal to determine the appropriateness and competitiveness of the bids proposals, or of bid proposals. Administration continues to actively recruit for the Director of Protective Services. Once filled, there will be an effort to fill the CPO role. Concerns have been raised that the limitations of authority to act placed on PSU members could limit their effectiveness. There are also potential liabilities that could arise and should be investigated through town's legal counsel, so the town does not take on any unanticipated liabilities. There is risk in engaging a short-term contract, which increases the public's perception of service level. It takes time to inform the public of alternative contacts to access service, and then subsequently removing that service may cause frustration. Based on current staff capacity and recognition of the need for bylaw education and enforcement during peak summer months, administration has advertised for 2 temporary bylaw positions, which have garnered a lot of interest. Proceeding with hiring these temporary positions will increase our ability to educate and enforce our bylaws while keeping costs within budget. Retracting these opportunities could also cause frustration among applicants. Administration has also been actively engaged with the RCMP, bringing forward our public safety concerns and discussing enforcement options. Conversations have been positive, and we are working towards initiatives where the town and RCMP can collaborate for increased patrolling to the downtown core. Recently, there's been a noticeable increase in RCMP activity in relations to encampments and enforcement of the town's camping bylaw in public spaces. So administration felt this topic had a lot of public interest, and in preparing the report, we tried to balance public interest and disclosing information with the need to protect proprietary business information that would be protected under FOIA. So, we recommend that council table the Apex discussion to the closed session portion of the meeting to receive additional information subject to point 16 disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party.
Thank you. So generally what we have in front of us is the sort of the generalizations of some three proposals. Not the
Correct. We
specifics.
took the, the crux of each of the proposals and summarized them.
Okay. So proposal one, providing patrol services to the town of Peace River. That one starts at $1 million and works its way, depending upon the actual coverage. Proposal two was providing, one bylaw enforcement officer, I think, and depending on service, 125,000 for a certain part of the year. Proposal three was patrol services plus training CPOs for the town. Okay, and cost similar to proposal one. So at this point, we cannot get into too many of the specifics because it's a contract matter, and so that would have to be enclosed. So does anyone have questions that they maybe would pose, but maybe will not be answered during this part of our agenda?
I've got lots, but do you have a hand up on the floor?
Sorry, that's I don't think we're picking people from the floor at this point in time, are we? No. So you had a question?
Well, I got lots.
So it's gonna be a question and not just comments, okay?
Oh,
So
definitely.
the question one,
Okay, first of all, thank you, Mr. Mumford, for that report. I know you and I have talked in the past about this. Was there any other proposals received from Apex? Just recently, like within the last few weeks, specifically on a pilot project, 3 months going month to month? My understanding that there was a package dropped off.
So that was in our report, the proposed addendum. So that's
Okay.
when they identify, they recognize that we have limitations in terms of how much we can improve and the initial agreement was significantly longer, and so the addendum was the shorter term.
My other question is, you had brought up CPO training. Can you let the council know what that is? As far as CPO training, like community peace officer, I know there's different levels in CPO. So I know the one thing that I've been looking at is a level 2 type, which Apex is doing now for, my understanding is doing now for Slave Lake. Town of Slave Lake just hired Apex to do the same thing, kind of the same thing. But it would be more of a bylaw enforcement rather than full level 1 CPO, which consists of traffic enforcement. So what do you mean by CPO training?
Level 1 CPOs.
Okay, because my understanding of the whole Apex scenario was to possibly look at doing the bylaw part of the CPO, and the RCMP would be doing the traffic.
Well, again, one of the limitations of what was initially proposed through the first proposal through the PSU is they do not have arrest authority, right? Like they don't have the ability to go hands-on. That's my understanding. Through discussion that's my understanding of the proposal and discussion with when we talked with the RCMP about this proposal to understand what their understanding of it was, and also we've reached out to other jurisdictions where this is in place, Grand Prairie.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, because even if we had a bylaw position, our bylaw doesn't have that enforcement authority either, as far as arrest authority.
Correct. And currently within our org structure, we don't have a bylaw officer position. We created 2 temporary bylaw positions for really just for the summer as a stopgap to provide additional support for the fire chief and myself in being able to respond to concerns regarding, weeds and, unsightly, that sort of thing.
And not, and just because that was another one of my questions is, was not that I don't disagree with it, but we don't have a bylaw, council does not have a bylaw position in our structure. So how did we come up with creating two temporary positions when there is no bylaw position available anyway?
Well, again, it's to provide additional support to myself and the fire chief to be more responsive to the issues that are raised by the public.
Okay, so maybe Councillor Good, you have a question?
I mean, one of the things that comes to my mind is one of the issues that we're facing is increasing crime, increasing the piece of the community, is the use of that term. And where I'm having difficulty in increasing our level of bylaw support is that I don't have a clear understanding of how being able to enforce bylaws would necessarily increase the level of safety. I mean, it would increase clean up yards, it would increase the bylaws that I'm aware of. But I'm not sure how, I'd like to have a better understanding of how increasing bylaw enforcement is going to be the answer to increasing or decreasing the amount of criminal activity, et cetera, in the community. And that's where I don't see the connection. I don't see the connection between bylaw enforcement and a lowering of criminal activity. I mean, if somebody said to me,
So your
don't
question,
throw out a number, I'm not negotiating. But if somebody said to me, give me $1 million, I'll give you 25% more police. I think I can make that connection pretty clear. $1 million, I have 25% more cops on the street. That's simple. They have the authority, they can do all kinds of stuff, not just bylaw. But if somebody said to me, I'm gonna pay X amount and I'm gonna increase bylaw enforcement, I just need to know where I just need to know where the connection is, and that hasn't been made clear to me. And not that a lot of good can't come out of it, but the problem that I'm hearing on the street is not that we don't have our lawns getting cut. The problems I'm hearing is not that we have people watering outside of ours. Those aren't the things that are being brought up. What's being brought up is, I've got 10 people in this area and I want them out of here. Well, tell you what, free country. If I'm on the street, you can't tell me to move. Tell me to move,
So-
I'll tell you to move.
so your question though is,
My question is, well, no, I'm making my point. My question is, I'd like to understand the connection between increasing bylaw support and lowering crime. If I can't make that connection, then I'm having a difficulty with the expenditure of money to no, bylaw enforcement is good in a whole bunch of other areas, but not as an answer to the problems that are being brought to us in the public right now, which is crime and safety in our streets.
So to clarify.
Yeah.
These are separate issues. There is
Right.
a fringe overlap between, properties are unsightly, uncapped, et
Sure.
cetera. There may be more criminal elements, criminal activity, but they really are separate issues.
Agreed.
And the direction that the town went in with the creation of the director role, which is intended to have focus in policing, is to revamp and rebuild our CPO program. Because the CPO program is a tool that the town has direct control over to effect action, reduce crime.
Thank you.
Through the RCMP, we have been working with them, and we've seen great progress in the past couple of months in terms of their level of activity. And we've had discussions with them to gain access to additional overtime and teams that they can send in. They've got the staffing levels to support that now. So we do have alternatives available that would be, direct policing services.
Thank you.
Councillor Carr, do you have any questions at this point?
No.
Deputy Mayor?
Not at this point.
Okay, and we're welcoming Councillor Boychuk. We're on the Apex discussion item. It got moved around on the agenda. Any further questions?
So you, Mr. Mudford, you had mentioned, with CPO that the town would have direct control. Because they would be a town employee. But let's say if council did choose to, use the services, would you still not have direct control because you would be governing, the potential business that's contracted to uphold the bylaws, which could be anything from loitering to the camping bylaw. And you can give the whoever it may be, the top priorities and bylaw that you want to see upheld. So if that's camping, if that's loitering and all that kind of stuff, is that not still direct control?
It's not, through my discussions, our discussions with Apex, I've got a great deal of confidence that they would be very responsive if we were to engage their services in addressing those matters. But it's not the same as the CAO hires a director, the director hires a CPO. That is, to me, that's direct control. When you're dealing with any third party, it's down to how good your contract is and how far you're willing to go to enforce that contract. So when the rubber hits the road, there could be limitations there could be difficulties. And until you've actually gone through that with the vendor, you really don't know how that will play out.
Okay, you have another question, Counselor?
Yeah, so unless a bylaw existed, you couldn't enforce it. Am I correct on that? My question is, if a bylaw doesn't exist, it's not enforceable, correct? And the reason I'm saying that is if we didn't have a loitering bylaw, then you couldn't enforce in loitering. My understanding is we don't. So my question is, what would be the bylaws that could be enforced? Well, my understanding is that they could be things like the encampments, because we have the camping bylaw. And a few things like that. But as far as being able to actively move people along, actively, I want you over here instead of over there. I want you to deal with this person. I really don't have to listen to somebody. I mean, I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm just saying, somebody can tell me to do something unless they have the authority to tell me to do it. I just basically say, thanks for the advice. Have a nice day. By the way, I'd like your name. I'm not giving you my name. Etc. All those sort of things, because in Canada, you don't have to. So, I mean, to an RCMP officer, I might. I don't know law in that case, but to anybody else. So I'm just saying, I think that there are limitations here that have to be discussed. Depending on how we define the problem we're trying to solve. And that's my question.
I don't have a law enforcement background. I don't pretend to know. I'm not an expert in the area. But when it comes to dealing with criminal elements, there's that ask, tell, make.
Yeah.
And RCMP have the authority to make. So that's where the limitation on like a bylaw officer, when we hired for a person last year who was in the process of getting their CPO training. They were present in the community, they were very visible, that likely had an impact, but they were aware that they did not have the authority to go hands-on and perform the rest.
Right.
So.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question. So with respect to, it says proposal 1, patrol services. So if we have trained security staff and they come across a situation, what are they able to do? In terms of the 3 things you said?
So that might be a question better discussed in close, because you
Okay.
can see, again, I don't want to characterize the language in their proposal.
Yeah.
Right, I don't think that's fair to them.
Yeah.
So I think that might be a better held for close.
Okay.
Thank you. I know you had said you don't have a background in policing or whatever, but, in the report, it did mention about not having the authority to detain and or possibly arrest, under the contract or supposed contract. If the there again, if council chooses to use Apex, would they not have and I don't, the professionals are out there, it's not me, but would they have the authority to detain and arrest until the police arrive?
Isn't that my question? I thought that was what I just asked, and we got asked to maybe put that into close.
Okay, well, if Mr. Mugford's not doesn't have the criminal or the policing background, is it appropriate to have
That's out
our?
of order, yeah, no.
I can undertake to get you a more detailed response. Again, my understanding of the proposal was that they do not have the ability to effect an arrest. At the PSU level that was being proposed, and that was why through subsequent discussion with them, they came back with a CPO an option to have their staff trained to be CPOs so that they could do so.
Thank you. Counselor Boychuk, do you have any questions at this point in time? No. Good. Okay, any new questions at this point in time? Okay, so I think we're all understanding the frustrations that are being experienced by people around this table, people in the community, business owners, people from outside our town as well. And there's no easy solution. So we have had this notice of motion that has brought us to this discussion. So at this point in time, if there's no further clarification questions at this point, perhaps somebody could move that we add, or did we already add, Ms. Parsons?
Just move that council table the Apex security discussion to the closed session portion of this meeting to receive additional information subject to FOIP section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party.
Okay, and so it's moved to table. We don't even vote on that, do we?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
All's in favor? Or,
So I'll make the motion.
thank you, Mr.
I have
Graham.
one question.
Okay.
Okay, and the one question is, and I know we've done this in the past, so because we're going into closed session, speaking about the proposals and its contract foible stuff, being that the individuals that are directly involved with this proposal, they would be allowed in that closed session for questions?
Not
We
necessarily.
have done that in the past.
I know, but it's usually planned, so I have to ask Ms. Parsons about that.
I mean, I suppose I would leave that to council's discretion if they wanted to invite an attendee to answer some questions at initial, but I wouldn't suggest that it would be for the entire portion, as council needs to have time to discuss the things on their own end, and also just further administration or further information from administration that they may not be privy to on our end.
Okay, so, council,
Motion's on the floor.
did you move on?
No, Counselor Good, but I'd put in a friendly amendment that we invite the Apex crew into that closed session for any questions that council may have prior to the proprietary information.
Or after council
Yeah.
does it?
Well, it kind of is or isn't.
Mhm.
And the difficulty I'm having is that to ask a question and then not have a comment after the question is asked, I don't have as much difficulty with. But I don't think the closed session is where you get into negotiations or back and forths with a person. In other words, if you were going to ask a question specifically, I'll just give you an example. Is Bill 10 feet tall? The answer is no, he's not 10 feet tall. Thank you. End of discussion. Not well, could he be made 10 feet tall? That's not the point. And I think if we're going to invite somebody into closed session to ask a question and the questions would have to be very specific on facts and not negotiations, because negotiations don't occur in closed session, because that's our business. So I'm gonna not accept the amendment. Not because I have a problem with any problem with Apex, because I'll be honest with you, I've seen the good work you've done in the community. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just talking strictly in the interest of propriety and also liability if something goes wrong. I don't think it's a safe decision to make to allow people in ahead of an invitation on short notice to that, and that, so I'm not prepared to accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, so,
My
Mr.
motion
Ford,
is to have the discussion in closed session.
Yeah.
At which point we can invite people back for another discussion at another point, another week later, whatever. But
So,
I don't wanna-
I think the way it goes is if Mr. Ford wishes to make an amendment, then we vote on that amendment, and it's either,
Well, Mr. Good's motion's on the floor Mr. Good already has a motion on the floor.
so, but,
I didn't accept the friendly amendment. You can now offer and.
And the other one
make a-
waits.
To
so
an
you can,
amendment to my motion,
Okay,
at
yeah,
which point we can vote yes or no.
because like I'm not trying to invite somebody into closed session for kind of the same reason you had mentioned.
I'm saying.
However, when I asked the question in open forum, whether the business has the right to detain and arrest, but I can't get an answer here, but I was told I could get the answer in closed.
so we don't necessarily know what admin's response would be to that. So at this point in time, you would move to amend Mr. Good's motion to the effect that Apex be invited into closed, I think.
That would be correct.
Okay, so is that your motion?
Yes.
Ms. Parsons has the motion. Okay, so we're gonna vote on the amendment.
Can I speak to, now I can speak to the
Yeah.
amendment.
So we're gonna vote on the amendment, and then depending on whatever, we go back to the original, and it's either the original as it was stated, or the original as amended, depending on how the amendment goes. Counselor Good.
Two parts. One, any questions that were not adequately answered and closed could be asked at a later point, once the questions have been clarified. Two, my very strong feeling is that there are risks in doing it in any other manner than what I'm describing. And I think those risks are not, I don't think that they're minuscule, because we have, and I'll speak to why I think there are risks there. Mr. Mumford talked about the fact that other people did not have invitations to present to council. The council had never directed anybody else come and offer anything or talk, which council could do and could do in the future and could have done in the past. And you could argue that maybe it would have been a good idea. But without other people being part of those discussions or having the same opportunities, I think we're running into a really risky area. I'll leave my argument at that. I see really potential risk here. I'm really not comfortable with having that motion pass.
Thank you. Counselor Carr, and then Counselor Flynn.
My question would be when can we ask questions? Would it be when the public has the opportunity to speak, that maybe the representatives of Apex could speak at that point, and we could ask a question on their ability to detain so that they don't have to come into council? Is that when we would ask these questions?
So, when we go into closed, we can direct administration to ask particular questions, to bring particular information back to us. That's when we can do that.
Okay, because my concern is timing.
Yeah,
Like, we
and-
have a growing problem now
So,
that we need to, whether Apex, whether CPOs, whatever, we need to be working on a solution now, not in July or August or September.
I think no matter what, there is a time
Oh, yes.
this will take. So that's my understanding. We can direct admin to pose certain questions. We're not negotiating, sitting around the council table, that kind of thing. So yes, you would have the opportunity. Okay, Councilor Ford? do you have-
Just to make sure I'm understanding Counselor Good, properly. So when you're talking about inviting, are you talking about the request for proposal from other businesses? Because my understanding, and I know Grand Prairie did it, and I know Slave Lake did it, that you do not need to go for a tender if it's a pilot project.
So we
Am I
should,
right?
Be honest with you. I'll speak to
I
that.
just-
You're correct. We may not have to.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it's advisable, because I've heard people around this table talk about the fact that contracts have been awarded without public tenders, that people didn't have an opportunity to bid, that people didn't have an opportunity. I've heard people in this council chambers talking about every business having an equal opportunity to present to council. That has not occurred. That's all I'm saying, and I'm not, and I'm being very specific in my statements, because I'm not trying to prejudice a decision one way or the other, except on this amendment.
okay, could you just, Councillor, Mr. Mudford, sorry.
Just wanted to, again, highlight the notice of motion was for administration to bring the business proposal to council for discussion. We thought it was to balance the public interest appropriate to have the proposal itself presented in camera, because it has very specific financial information, information that basically how they run the business. If there's questions, we can undertake to get a response to those. So if there's anything that we need clarified through those proposals, we can go back to Apex and get clarification on it. There doesn't need to be again, it's council's prerogative of how they want to proceed with it, but we can undertake to get any clarification. And also, under the other consideration section, I want to repeat that we did not get a legal review of this proposal. We haven't gotten that higher level review of whether or not this is appropriate for us.
Am I correct also that let's say we end up with 3 questions or 10 questions out of our closed session. Those could be directed to Apex and brought back. I don't see a reason where information can't be brought back at our next council meeting, even though it's not a regular council meeting. We don't have to make a motion. We can get information. We can receive reports at that meeting. Am I correct? Our next meeting would not be a regular council meeting. It would be
Our next meeting is at the end of July. We don't have a GMP. There's one meeting in July on the schedule.
we could move to have a special meeting if we thought it was necessary to.
But anyways, depending upon the question, there is, a contract negotiation, all that sort of thing, which should be private to the company if that's their usual way of operating and the town's usual way of operating. So, Ms. Parsons, could you read the motion, the amendment motion, please?
Move that Councillor Good's motion be amended to read, move that council table the Apex security discussion to the closed session portion of this meeting to receive additional information subject to FOIP section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, and that representatives of Apex be invited to attend a portion of the closed session item to answer clarifying questions.
So the amendment is to, request Apex to attend the closed portion of the meeting. That is the amendment.
Yes, that last part, and that representatives of Apex be invited to attend a portion of the closed session meeting. That is the portion that would be amended of Councillor Good's.
So does everyone understand what the amendment is now? Okay, Councillor Ford, one last.
Recorded vote, please.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, and I just want to make sure it's clear that right now we're voting on the
The
amended
amendment.
motion, not the motion itself. So it's whether you want this motion to go forward or the previous motion to go forward, not the actual contents.
Right.
If that makes sense.
We're voting the amendment.
Yeah,
One way or
yes.
another, we're voting.
Yes.
Okay, So, we're voting on the amendment and it will be a recorded vote, so you have to hold up your hand a little longer than usual, so, the recorder can record your name for the minutes. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, we've got, Ford, Carr, and Boychuk, and Shannon. Opposed would be Good and Mansard. Okay, so the amendment is approved, it's passed. So now the main motion with the amendment is what we need to hear and vote on.
Recorded will begin, please.
Okay, so we understand the motion is to, and Ms. Parsons, you might as well read it again, please.
Move that council table the Apex security discussion to the closed session portion of this meeting to receive additional information subject to FOIP section 16 disclosure harmful to business interests of the third party, and that representatives of Apex be invited to attend a portion of the closed session item to answer clarifying questions.
Okay. So again, it's recorded vote. So all those in favor of that motion. Okay, we've got, Carr, Good, Ford, Shannon, and Boychuk. And to be difficult, I'm voting against it. Just so we can say we've got democracy working here. Okay, so that will happen during the closed portion when we get there in our meeting. So at this point in time, we are now back to grants to organizations with Director Bell.
First camel line.
Oh,
Lost track. Forgot about him.
Barely noticed.
Brad, s'il vous plaît.
okay, Ms. Bell, if you want to start.
Sure. Just waiting for all parties to be in the room. Your worship and council, and follow up to the three presentations that you had earlier in your this evening's agenda. The associated request for decision is presented. Administration provided scoring as per the policy, which you can choose to utilize in your decision making, or your other option is council to give direction on the value of each award you would like to provide to the three applicants before you. Just of note, all three applicants meet the requirements of the policy and are recommended for some level of funding, and the amounts would be directed under council.
Thank you. I just had a question. When I see the scoring, is that two people scored it or it's?
Correct. So it's
Okay.
the scores for each individual.
As I thought 25 out of 18, that should be kind of high, right? Definitely not.
It's my bad math. No, it's
No.
the total scoring for
Okay.
each two individuals, as opposed to trying to average just two scoring. That seems not very fair.
Okay, so the totals being asked for here, the 10,000 for Peace River boating, Glen Mary volleyball 5,000. And the rugby asked for 1,000, and the briefing note is recommending 10,000 for the volleyball, which is what they asked for. Glen Mary 5,000, which is what they asked for. Rugby 500 instead of the 1,000 they asked for. I note that that would leave $667 left for this quarter, and I would propose that the rugby get at least 600 or six something. Anyways, questions of Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Why were the budget numbers blacked out for the voting club, but nobody else?
I don't know, I just noticed that.
It's happened before for, another,
Partly maybe proprietary, but in this case, it was just a budget, so I would have left.
Ms. Parsons?
I can speak to that, so apologies. Sometimes it's just not clear to me, like, which ones are based off of quotes from companies and which ones are just like projected budgets, and I get nervous about publishing information that's like a third-party quote that they might not want.
I think if they
And
handed
so-
in, they should have made that decision prior to you having to decide anything, because I noticed there was one in the last intake that had some blank outs as well.
Mhm.
Because my concern is how do you make a decision to give them $10,000, not knowing,
Yeah.
not seeing their budgetary numbers?
Okay,
Good question. It's fair.
Could we fill those numbers down?
We could. Could we? Do you have?
Sorry, yeah, I can send them right now or, bring them up now, yeah.
That would be.
while that's happening, any other questions? No. Do we go to make a motion? Okay, but do you need to see the actual numbers?
Well, I probably voted in favor, but I just didn't understand why they were blacked out, nobody else's were. I mean, it's easier to make a decision with all.
Yeah.
Okay, Deputy Mayor has a motion to put forward.
Just, oh, sorry. Quick note, council also has the option to, the quarterly amount is a guideline. So you can overexpend your quarterly, it just takes away from the next one. Just wanted to put that out there.
If there's,
Councilor Scannell?
there's 34 left, we haven't
Correct.
spent. They're asking for 16. We only have one more intake left.
Correct.
16?
Well, the total ask
Total ask.
Oh,
is 16, so we would have more than that left for the last quarter.
What are you suggesting?
Well, I don't want to step on anyone's toes yet.
Okay, Deputy Mayor is gonna make a motion.
and my motion is that we, provide $10,000 to Peace River Boating Association, $5,000 to the Glengarry School, and $1,000 to the Peace River Country, or Peace Country Rugby Club.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Okay, Ms. Parsons, before we actually,
Sorry, I didn't have a question. I just want to say that the budget is on the Teams channel now, if Tanya did want to bring it up. Quickly on the screens.
all three.
Oh, there.
You don't need to justify it.
Well, that's nice to squint at, but
Hold on, hold. Trying to figure out that.
yeah, Mr. Carr.
Is that any better?
Not for me, but Mr. Carr can distinguish anything you wanna.
Insurance is approximately 6,500, their sanction application 600, 150 for club application. Not sure what it is. Fuel, 4,500, so for the support boats, not for the drivers, or for the racers. Video production, 8,500, as you saw a bit of, a sample of that tonight. Race program printing is 5,000, marketing 5,000. Tents, 750, so contribution to pond hockey. Registration timers individuals, so some costs there of 2,000, miscellaneous at 2,000. Boat launch prep is 7,500. Fuel, for the helicopter, 3,000. Some advertising through local radios, 2,500. Trophies, 3,000. The chalet banquet, 1,000. Rentals and permits, 500. Porta potties cleaning, 5,000, which is a donation. APL paramedics, 3,000, security, peace performance, 2,000, and Rotaract donation. Probably part of the, Mad for Plaid event contribution.
So the bottom line down there was
70,415.
and that's their expenses, not net.
That's right,
Knowing what
that's their
doing.
expenses, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. All those, do you remember the motion?
Whole thing.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? It is carried.
Thank you.
So, okay, next up, municipal assessor appointment, Mr. Mugford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So at issue is the appointment of the town's municipal assessor, in accordance with section 284.2 of the Municipal Government Act. The municipality must appoint an assessor to perform assessment services on properties located within the municipality. The town's contract with the current assessor is expiring, so a request for proposal was put out seeking assessment services from July 1, 2024 until June 30th, 2028. 2 proposals were submitted and scored by a 3-person committee. The scoring was unanimous. Municipal Assessment Services Group was the selected proponent. Reference checks were performed and found to be satisfactory. The options before council are that council appoint Travis Horn of Municipal Assessment Services Group as the town's municipal assessor for the period July 1, 2024 until June 30th, 2028. The advantages are that supports appointment of the low-cost proponent recommended by administration and complies with the requirements of the MGA. The financial implications are just the cost of the annual assessment services. Option 2 is to decline to appoint Travis Horn as the Municipal Assessment Service Group as assessor for the period July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2028. No advantages that disadvantages goes against the recommendation of the proposal review group, and the town would be without appointed municipal assessor. The recommendation of the council appoint Travis Horn, a municipal assessment group, municipal assessment services group as the town's municipal assessor for the period July 1, 2024 until June 30, 2028. Thank you.
Is this a new?
KCL was before, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
And the purpose, the assessor, what do they do?
They are arm's length evaluator of all of the assessed property in the town.
So do they do a certain portion in actuality each year?
Yeah, so there's a cycle that is set up, depends on the municipality. We're normally on a 5-year cycle that they'll look at each property. They'll also look at any properties that have developing permits pulled.
Thank you. Any further
I'm
questions?
sorry, Madam Mayor. They also address any appeals that come in from the public. They usually are like the person that's putting in the complaint is on one side, they're on the other. And if it goes the distance, then a committee is overseen to make determinations as to any differences in valuation. I'll also point out that both proponents are subject to the same types of rules, the same standards. So they, the methodologies that they use are audited, as are the results.
Thank you. Councilor Ford?
I'm just gonna go back to previous years, not that I disagree with the report or anything, but does council not get to see both proposals and know who those proposals were from, like we did in the past?
We don't see.
No, this was prior to this council.
No.
I'm talking a number of years ago when we had the other.
That's not really in our own books, is it?
No.
I thought they brought proposals, like showed us both proposals and then you could choose whoever you wanted. That's,
Yeah.
I'm talking years. Okay.
Normally, yes. Okay, any further questions? Someone have the motion they'd like to put forward? Councilor Ford?
Yeah, put a motion on the floor that council appoint Travis Horn of the Municipal Assessment Services Group as the town's municipal assessor for the period of July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2028.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Next up, we have the 2024 overlay project with Mr. Fisher, an update.
Good evening, council. This one's just a verbal update of our 2024 overlay program. There's a typo in my briefing note. I met with the contractor this afternoon, so the 24th, not the 20th, like it's stated in the report. So when I last did my capital update, I think that was beginning of April, it was currently out for tender. We received 3 bids. The successful tender was Wapiti Gravel Suppliers, and the contracted amount is $1.138 million. In the budget, initial budget passed, we had $750 allocated to the overlay project this year. I came
50,000.
750, yep. And I came and asked for an additional 400 to include a big chunk of the sidewalk patches and the road patches that are currently sitting there delinquent. So we have awarded that. We've done our kickoff. The contractor will probably start mobilizing equipment near the EQV school around July 8th or 9th. And they'll be sending notices out to the affected residents there. So while they're doing construction, there'll be single lane closures and access lane closures while they're doing the work. And they plan on splitting the road up into pieces so that there's at least one lane maintained at all times there. For the miscellaneous patches around town, for most of them, they'll just be able to do like a local area closure with some traffic control around them. With the exception, there's one big patch on Judah Hill and one patch on 80th Street to tie into rail tracks for CN. Both of those will be a full road closure, advertised appropriately. The expected completion date is the end of August. That's our contracted completion date. And just depending on how the work progresses, that's pretty much what it will take. So we'll be focusing on the bigger piece by the school first, and then moving around the community to, I think there are 14 different patch locations that are identified. That's the big stuff. It's mostly just a verbal update to let you know that we were awarded. They're going to be starting. We'll be posting something, creating a town project page with some additional information, and then posting some social media alerts as we get moving and getting work started.
Sounds good. There was a question from a resident, I believe. Is the corner of Caribou Cresting one of the patch jobs? Great.
Yes, your worship, it should capture a lot of the water break patches on the roadway. Or we've got some CC repairs. If we don't catch it this year, it's because I didn't know about it at the time we prepared the design drawings in January.
Great. Questions of Mr. Fisher, Councillor Carr?
The road damage at the north end for the new school, would any of that fall back onto the contractors?
Not unless we sue them.
Oh, okay.
And that patch of road, does it go the full length of that little street in front of the school, right from the stop sign at the corner of 99 maybe?
It should go from the intersection near 99th, not including the intersection, because I didn't wanna. I probably will have to get in there and do some storm sewer repairs, and I just was limiting my budget, so it'll probably go from about the stop sign past, and then just a little bit around the corner up, I think the 100th. Is it 100th Street?
The one that goes up the hill anyhow.
A little bit, yeah, it goes up just past the catch basins there to clean up some issues. And then it also includes the cul-de-sac, the whole cul-de-sac.
Wow. They'll love the new payment. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Fisher. So perhaps someone would put forth a motion to accept for information. Council Boychuk. Oh, by all means.
Yeah, please.
I'll put a motion that council accept a briefing note regarding the 2024 overlaying project update for information purposes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? It is carried. Okay, number 4, Municipal Affairs Intern Program, Ms. Parsons.
So this is just revisiting this item from the June GNP, where council had discussed this and asked that administration bring it back for formal discussion and decision. So the municipal affairs internship program, if you're successful in the grant application, allows the municipality to bring on board a post-secondary graduate. And they do an internship underneath one of the managers, and they would work in each department and rotate through and just gain municipal experience. It's a really great way to get young professionals involved in the municipal government world and bring people in to a world that a lot of people don't know much about, I think. So the grant would provide the municipality with $60,000 to go towards the intern's compensation and expenses for recruitment or relocation and professional development. And then the municipality would just have to top that up over the 18-month program, approximately between 52 to 58,000 over that 18 months. And I'm open to any questions, Councilman.
Councilors? Councilor Boychuk.
So is this a matched wage through the whole thing? So if they will ever say they do it for 6 months and quit, what would we be out? Or would we be out in it? Or would they use up the government's portion first and then we continue on? How would that go down?
It's a very good question. I would have to look into that. It doesn't say that it's matched. It just encourages that the municipality would contribute. So I would have to look into that.
Mr. Boychuk, anything further? No.
At minimum, I would say we would, if it were, then we'd be up to 50% for the 6 months.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Good?
Based on that question, is there a time that this has to be put in by?
Yes, so the report, the application deadline is October 1st.
Okay.
For this, and then they decide if you're successful in the grant, and then you would go through the applications and they would come on board in the new year in May or June.
Because I think it's a fair question. I think it's a good question. And I think there's nothing stopping us from tabling this until we get an answer to that question. Am I correct?
However, if the person only works 2 months, they're only going to get 2 months of whatever the salary was. They're not gonna get the whole 60,000 for 2 months and then take off. You know, that kind of thing.
Who would they be for?
Well, I don't know, not me. Mr. Boychuk.
In your opinion, will we get $60,000 worth of value out of this employee, especially getting their wage like matched?
Above and beyond.
Good answer.
And, you know, as municipal councils, we're well aware that it's very hard to hire into some municipal admin positions. And this is one way of helping the cause, really.
If I may, I've participated in this program in other municipalities, and it's been nothing but a great experience, and you just get such great work. These people are educated, they're used to doing research, they're used to writing reports, and so them to convert their report to a policy and take that research is something they can easily do, and they're very good at it, if you hire the right person, and I have not, seen someone come in and not been exceptional. It has been always a pleasure to participate in this program and see what we get out of the money we put in.
I think it's sometimes rejuvenating for the rest of the staff too, because they get a different viewpoint and maybe some questions about why certain processes are in place and time to examine them, as we've learned on certain policies around here. But, yeah, anyways, any further discussion? Do we have a motion? Forget it.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll move the council. Did we skip this letter?
Yeah, and
Second, where am I?
I would say that
Oh, yeah.
your motion should be that council, it says council support the town of Peace River. Well, it's really council direct the town of Peace River to apply for this, isn't it? Like if we're supporting it, how would you do it without our support? Right? So anyways, I think the little part at the beginning of the motion.
So change support to direct. So be it. Council, I'll move that council direct the town of Peace River to apply to the 2025-2026 Alberta Community Partnership Program for participation in the municipal affairs internship program administrator stream, with the municipally funded portion of this position to be included in the 2025-2026 budget.
Any further questions? All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Okay, item 5, I think was moved, it was changed anyhow. Item 6, Sagatawa Friendship Society's request for a letter of support. Mr. Mugford, would you be speaking to this? Yes, Ms. Miller.
Certainly. Sagatawa Friendship Center's request for a letter of support for their grant application for emergency shelter operation funds. So just some background, Sagatawa Friendship Center is once again seeking a letter from the town in support of their grant application for their emergency shelter operating funds. Previously, this grant was administered through the Winter Emergency Funding Grant Program. However, the funding is now being provided through the Emergency Response Measures Grant. For council's reference, the letter of support provided by the town in 2023 is attached to this report. So the request is that council direct whether they wish to provide a letter of support to the Sagatawa Friendship Center, Friendship Society in support of their grant application to the Emergency Response Measures Grant Program for operating an emergency shelter in town. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that our letter of the last year, we supported Sagatawa operating a 24/7 shelter for the emergency fund. So is it 24/7? That's what we're supporting them to do on this one as well, do you think? And if so, is that?
From my understanding, Sagatawa is 24/7 for their winter hours, and then they adjust their hours in the summer months. So I think that's why it was worded that way,
Okay,
because they need support for that 24-hour operation in the winter.
okay, thank you. Other questions on this matter? Councilor Ford.
Councilor Scanlon.
We can all ask.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious, I'm not sure if you have the answer or not, maybe Councilor Boychuk can chime in. I know Slave Lake has had some major issues. They just actually shut their shelter down because of the issues that are happening within their community. Do we feel as a council that this program or this shelter program is helping the community, or is it not actually helping?
So I'll ask my question. So my question, I'm not sure if I have enough information to provide a letter of support, given, like, we've had report come back to us that there's people from other communities now in our community because our shelter is operating in other communities where it is not. So if we're just in support of people wishing to live an urban lifestyle that normally have other places to go, other places to do, or that kind of thing. We're just kind of the last, sort of the last one open where people are going to begin to congregate. That may be happening, that may not be, I don't know. So where I'm at with it is I would like more information on who is using the shelter. And in that regard, particularly in the summertime. So I would decline support until I know more.
Any other discussion? Counselor Carr?
Counselor Counselor Scamhorn said, that he had a report that people were,
We've heard, and like I said, I
heard
don't know,
officially or,
in a communication to us.
okay, I haven't seen.
It's
that.
in your email.
So in other words, you would like a response to some data as to who is
Yeah.
using the shelter
Yeah.
in the summer months?
Well, in
That-
particular, in the summer months, I mean,
Okay.
I'll take all the data I can get.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Other questions, comments at this point in time?
I'm thinking for a minute.
Can we table it?
Yeah, and that would be my intention, is that, I'm not saying no, I'm saying no, I don't know. I couldn't make a decision with the information I have now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Counselor Boychuk?
I think we really need to discern who we have in our community that's being released from our correctional center and who's getting confused with those who are experiencing houselessness right now. There's a massive increase, not only in our community and almost every community across Alberta. Personally, if we think along that thinking, we should close the domestic violence shelter down too, because, people are just gonna come to the community and find safe haven where there isn't one in theirs, right? And that's what our domestic violence serves all of northern Alberta and part of Saskatchewan, so looking at it from that angle, shutting it down because other people are coming here for help, do we close our hospital too? I'm kind of against that argument, but we need to, look at what's going on around homelessness in our community, who's combating and how they're combating it and helping, is Sagatawa moving into housing? Because if they're just gonna keep people on a mat full-time, that's not a good way to go either, so we need to keep moving and progressing forward. And I know they're getting into housing, I know they're struggling and being overwhelmed, but at the same time, so is our community. But, I'm all about gathering good and credible data of what's going on in our community, and we need to find that out. We need to find out who's experiencing homelessness in our community, why they're experiencing it. And there's data and collection services we can do for free to get that if we want to put the man hours into that. So, I think it's best to make decisions with the credible data and especially lean on this. We know we're getting 300 plus prisoners a year released into our community. And let's not get those guys confused with those experiencing homelessness from our community. That's my thoughts.
Some of the people being released though from the correctional facility, I was informed, they are from our community, so there's an overlap a little bit on some. Sorry, Counselor Good.
Sure, and where my difficulty comes in is where my responsibility comes in. My responsibility is to my community and my citizens. That's fine. I have no problem with that. If my responsibility is to my citizens plus citizens that other people turn away, I'm not so sure I have that responsibility. The fact that somebody else doesn't do it doesn't necessarily put the responsibility on us to provide. I mean, at that point, everybody should say no and just send it all to Edmonton, because, they tax their people and provide it. But I also have different feelings toward people who are experiencing houselessness or homelessness than I do for people that are, committing crimes, because homelessness to me does not equal criminal. But when I see, assaults, when I see thefts, when people go in and steal from a business in town, a basket full of electronic stuff, because they know they can sell it quick for pennies on the dollar. that to me, that's not houselessness necessarily that's motivating that.
So you're asking for more data as well then?
I'm thinking out loud at the same time, because I have some real difficulties of saying no to people who need help. But I'm not into I'm not totally in favor of enabling people to continue bad behaviors until they find it the time or the motivation to change. So that's where I have difficulty. Would more information help? Yeah, absolutely. When we originally talked about the shelter, it was for a 24/7 shelter, and that's fine, it's not. But they're bringing it back to us that it's not 24, it's 24/7 during the winter, but not in the summer. Okay, we can consider that. But that's not what it was originally. That was not my understanding originally, that it was going to be sort of shorter hours here, longer hours here. And I see the effects I see the things that are going on in my community right now, where people are having difficulty and running into severe financial problems in their businesses because of the expense of compensating for the bad behavior of people. I'm not talking about houselessness. I'm talking about they're suffering bad financial events to the tune of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, which you could view as just a tax on them if you wish. But it's certainly not a tax where they have a voice in it. Somebody gets a couple of $1,000 and stuff going in the store. Is that their social contribution?
So, but the question here is,
Yeah, and I have difficulty at this point because of those things. More data would help.
so someone could make a motion that admin be directed to request Sagatawa to bring a report.
I would add Sagatawa, I would add HS, the EMS and the emergency room. What happens when the shelters are actually closed? I would ask the police what their crime response is and how many of their calls are non-crime related. When we have a massive crime problem, if we end up sending more people onto the streets with nowhere to go for the day, well, our police will be overwhelmed. So I think these are important things to do besides finding out what Sagatawa is doing and what's going on there.
Okay, so on the matter of Sagatawa, I have a feeling that there's probably a deadline for their grant application. Council, what do you propose?
Mayor?
Yes.
I would also like to comment that, you know, good things are starting to happen with our shelter being here and more services are starting to slowly sneak into our town. The Canadian Mental Health Association is looking at setting up services here now because of the shelter. And we also have our therapeutic living center, I believe, coming here in our correctional center here this next month because of the services we're starting to add. So I think if we would be going the wrong direction if we start to cut services in our community and not support those ones that are barely hanging out by a thread.
So the other twist on it, we could support this at this point in time, but also second motion request whatever data. Or we can table it until we get specific data from Sagatawa and consider the other services as well for the different motion. For direction or emotion.
I would look more not for data, but for solutions, you know, looking at what's going on there, how they're gonna move people off the mats. In Ontario, you have 28 days to get off a mat. We've had people sleeping on these mats from the day it's open, you know, because if they move them to continually getting better. So if you want to just live the life of sleeping on a mat, then you end up losing that mat. But if you want to work yourself better and through a system, then you're able to utilize the shelter system there. So I would kind of look at some sort of guidance towards Sagatawa and expectations down the road and look at what their solutions are for, you know, Because shelters are very expensive for a community run and supportive housing is a lot cheaper. And if we can move towards that a little more and support them in doing that, then we'll actually save a lot of money.
Okay, so what motion would you put forward?
I would put a motion forward that we support Sagatala in their endeavor and develop a closer relationship so we can see what is actually going on factually at the shelter and what programs are being utilized to move people out of homelessness to continue the support.
So by closer relationship,
Or more incoming reports of what's going on, maybe monthly meetings with our admin. To, you know, this is a big problem in our community and we need to get our admin finding, like, who is connected with Sagatau to actually find out what's happening. I know I've been trying to meet with them and it's tough, but I think if we're gonna throw our weight behind this,
so
we
the
want
other.
some accountability at the same time.
The other issue, though, is that as municipalities, we're not necessarily in housing supply chain command here. Okay, I've got Mr. Good, Mr. Scammerhorn, Mr. Ford.
The only control we have to a degree right now, unfortunately, in front of us is saying yes to this or no to this. If we say yes to this and then say, by the way, we said yes, but here's your conditions, the answer are there are none. There's no conditions, nothing in here. If I like the idea of you talk about 28 days on the mat. In other words, we're here to help you. We're not here to give you a new lifestyle, whatever. I like those kind of things. But I'm uncomfortable in supporting the Friendship Center without having certain expectations of performance and behavior. I mean, you're correct. It is expensive and housing, there's other options that could be explored. I'm like I said, I'm having a real difficulty with this because I agree with, I don't think you and I would differ on the end result. It's how do you get there effectively at the same time balancing the needs of the community? And I have difficulty supporting this without conditions on it. Like, what are we getting for the amount of money that we're putting into it? What are we getting for the grants? What are we getting for supporting them in their letter? If it's not costing us anything, that's fine and dandy, except that it is.
We can see what the conditions of the grant are.
Sorry?
There will be conditions on the grant and reports that they have to answer to, so they will be, we can see what that would be.
Maybe we should see what that is
You know,
before we say yes to this.
Because if they
Yeah.
say they're asking for money to do this and this is how they're gonna be held accountable, it'll all be laid out nice and plain and
Well, then
simple.
let's see that before we say yes to supporting the grant. And
I would agree with
I'm
that.
Okay, who was next here?
I was just saying, I mean, if you're having a hard time meeting with them, perhaps lack of a letter would get someone to a table.
The only street we have.
That's your point.
That's it.
Councilor Ford.
Words right out of my mouth between the two of you, both of you, but I put a motion on the floor that council declined to provide a letter of support until more information is available. Or is that properly worded?
Okay, we got, you know, you should put it positively, you should put it as here and defeat that. You should put it to provide the letter and that should be defeated.
And then we
Otherwise,
make
we're
another motion about the next act.
a double negative or something.
Yes.
So you could make, you're right, you should, not to make the motion in the negative. You could make the recommended motion, and then defeat it, or you could just choose to make a separate motion, just, requesting further information.
If we make the motion to do the letter and then defeat it, we can't break it back to do a letter later. So we just don't do that and then just add. So
But we could bring a, if I'm correct in understanding, saying we could bring a motion now inviting Sagatala to provide information, at which point we could say, these are the things we expect, am I roughly it? The motion would be, we're inviting them. I don't know how to.
Okay, so Mr. Ford's motion right now is that his motion is to decline the letter of support for Sagatala. He could withdraw that motion and make a different one, so we're more clear on
I'll make.
Are you withdrawing your motion?
Withdrawn.
I'll move that we request further information from Sagatawa regarding the clientele at the shelter, including community of origin, length of stay, and others as we think of it.
Before consideration of this request.
I like that.
So we think of it.
What?
Okay, and, so everybody's clear on Mr. Scallahorn's motion at this point?
I am now.
What did he move then, Ms. Parsons?
I'm gonna summarize that just a little bit. Move that council request further statistical information with regard to Sagatawa Friendship Society prior to considering provision of a letter in support of their grant application.
So is it, statistical information on homeless thing or, what kind of?
Mr. Scannell's points. That's something we can follow up with administration after if we have further need of.
Okay. So, and we might also find out, just as an aside, when the deadline is for their application.
And the nature of the grant and the conditions of, that kind of thing too, absolutely.
Okay,
That's exactly what I was gonna say, is we need to know what the grant.
the grant criteria and deadlines.
Mark said it lays it all out. Because there's like, the original is the winter emergency funding grant, and I think, having somewhere for people to not freeze to death is different than I think how it's kind of running now, which is sort of how it started, and so to Mr. Good's point earlier, of what it's doing now is different from what it was doing before. Does it still serve the community well or not? We don't know.
Okay, so do we need the motion read to us? No, nobody said yes. Okay.
Good idea.
Oh, okay then, Ms. Parsons, if you have a motion that you would like to read to us.
Move that council request further statistical information with regard to the services provided by Sagatawa Friendship Society, as well as additional information about the emergency response measures grant, prior to considering providing a letter of support to Sagatawa.
Everyone clear on the motion? All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Mr. Boychuk, if you would like some other stuff to start happening, maybe there's a way that you would ask to get that topic on the agenda, and then it would flow from there formally. Okay, I think that ends that section. We're now into reports. Oops, sorry.
There's one more item.
Oh my God. Okay, sorry. Item 7, Director of Protective Services Recruitment Status Upgrade, and I assume Mr. Mugford is telling us about this.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as I mentioned earlier during the Apex presentation, we've been in the process of recruiting for our Director of Protective Services role. So this is just an update on that. So earlier in the year, Leaders International, which is a large recruiting firm, was engaged to assist in the recruitment of our Director of Protective Services. In early May, the hiring panel conducted interviews with potential candidates, and an offer was subsequently made to a candidate who best matched our desired skill set and personality fit. An in-person tour of the community was arranged for mid-June with an anticipated start date of July 29th, anticipating the director being in place in the end of July. Administration next looked to fill the budgeted seasonal bylaw positions, so to oversee just minor bylaw concerns. These positions will support the director throughout the summer, filling an existing service gap currently addressed in part by existing staff, myself and the fire chief. Administration initially explored the possibility of outsourcing the service, requesting cost estimates of provision of seasonal bylaw services through Apex as part of that subsequent part of that discussion that we had with them. An evaluation of the estimated costs proved to administration that outsourcing the service would exceed the budget provision, and we would be able to provide twice the resources through direct hiring in that role. As a result, HR advertised the seasonal bylaw positions, favorable response, and interviews will begin in the immediate. Once engaged, minimal levels of authority will limit the bylaw officer's scope of duties to addressing bylaw infraction complaints such as weed, grass, unsightly property, and unpermitted development concerns. Unfortunately, the candidate offered the Director of Protective Services position withdrew their interest prior to their community visit, and Leaders International has resumed their search for potential candidates on our behalf. Thank you.
Any questions on the matter? Counselor Scannell?
So this is like, you had a number one individual, you don't just kind of go down to the number two individual and bring them up and say, hey, last guy said no, maybe you're the guy or person.
So I wasn't directly involved in the interviewing process, but my understanding is that the secondary and tertiary candidates, we didn't feel that they were the right fit for the role.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Counselor Ford?
I brought this up in the Apex, conversation, but there again, when it comes to the bylaw positions, I know there is no full-time bylaw. Where did the temporary positions come? I don't remember seeing any temporary positions in our. I didn't think there was any. I know of all of the temporary positions when it comes to summer students and all that, but I've never seen a temporary position for bylaw.
So this isn't, it's not a position that's within our organizational chart. Again, the idea was to utilize having had vacancies of the director for longer than we anticipated, and the CPO position as well. It would be utilizing those funds for that purpose in the short term.
Ms. Parsons?
It's also administration's understanding that the CAO has the authority to create a temporary position for a short period of time without council approval.
So this is basically the CAO being able to redirect time from the fire chief and from Director Mugford, who have other duties and can't be checking the length of grass and other kind of stuff while still getting all that other done.
That answers the question. I was not aware that the CEO had the authority to create a position for a temporary position.
Temporary.
Okay. Did not know.
Okay, learning curve for everybody. Any further discussion? Okay, would someone perhaps move this for information?
Sure.
Counselor Ford?
Move the report for information.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, moving right along here. Reports are next, and we have them in front of us, so you've been able to review them. Are there any points someone wants to bring forth about the council event report from myself? Councillor Scammellhorn. Next up is the PRAC meeting minutes, Peace River Aboriginal Interagency Committee meeting of May 21. I'll just say that planning for the powwow is well underway there. Any questions? Next up, the rail report. This is the CRAA group. On that tiny print, one of the main concerns there is that I think it's the fires have destroyed part of the railway that goes from Enterprise to Hay River. And the thought is that CN in its wisdom is deciding that maybe it will not replace that, which is a transportation corridor from from Enterprise over to Hay River. And we think of the issues they've had with fires, low water levels and all that sort of thing. So it forces them more and more to transportation by plane, which is very, very expensive. So our committee is saying you shouldn't fix that.
Next up, Economic Development Committee meeting, Council or Deputy Mayor Shannon or Councillor Carr, anything you want to highlight there?
I didn't attend that, we were at FCM's.
Okay. Okay, yes, thank you.
It says a report would come into town council on June 24th about the crime and vandalism downtown. Did we receive that report?
Where are you?
Under reports. And then there's downtown revitalization, section 2.
In the EDC?
Yeah. And then it says the town is aware and working on options to try and help. A report will be going to council on June 24th. Just kind of curious what that was.
The Apex?
It just says a report, so I'm just kind of curious. Was it Apex?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any further questions there? Would someone move the reports 9.1 through 9.4 for information? Councillor Carr or?
Yeah, could do that.
Oh, no, lovely. All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Information packages, just a note here that one of these packages had the letter from Indigenous Canada, that Woodland Cree First Nation have sent us a letter of notification to form a urban reserve, and so we're following up with that. Other than that, one of them had a letter from Municipal Affairs, basically saying that the Canada Community Building Fund allocations for 2024 might be delayed because the province is negotiating a 10-year contract with the federal government on that matter. So that could be interesting. MD of Peace, there's a letter to the Minister of Education. They sent us a copy regarding the school board funding cuts, and in particular, they referred to Holy Family. Other than that, economic development might be affected by the North Peace Commercial Driving Academy that is opening in Grimshaw at the Peace River School Division in September. Anybody else want to bring forth any items? Okay, maybe council will move that the items 10.1 be accepted for information. Councillor Good. He moves that. All those in favor? Great. Any notices of motion, Mr. Mugford?
No, your worship.
Been received. Okay,
Over here.
what, Councillor Carr,
Was the item, Regional Energy Committee member appointment?
it's now in, part of closed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because of information we need first. Okay, so, make sure I didn't miss something here. Comments from the public. So this is where members of the public are able to comment for about 2 minutes on any item that was raised during this meeting. If you so choose,
The other one's left.
you could come to the table there and say something for 2 minutes on a topic that was mentioned that might be of interest to you.
Should bring up the defects or weight. I'll fix it.
Okay. So you just state your name, turn the red button on and bring up your points.
Thank you, Mayor Meisner, and thank you, council. Just want to say with the Apex proposal, and that I think there was a little bit of misunderstanding into regards to our proposals that we put in and how they were collaborated together for your presentation that was put onto the agenda for today. We'd like to highlight the potential benefits, cost effects, solutions, and strategic collaboration with existing law enforcement. Preventing crime and ensuring community safety can lead to indirect financial benefits such as attracting businesses and residents. While there are risks in short-term contracts, the benefits of demonstrating PSU's effectiveness, gathering critical data, as you guys request, and building community support outweigh the risks. Effective management and open communication can ensure a smooth transition towards enhanced public safety and community trust. We urge you to reconsider the budget or look at the allocation in regard to PSU, prioritizing immediate public safety needs through the PSU.
and ensure that the town can deploy frontline security personnel who provide immediate, visible benefits to the community. This approach addresses urgent safety concerns and enhances overall public confidence in the town's commitment to security. Thank you for your time and consideration.
That was very concise. Thank you very much. Okay, key communication items, I would suggest the grants to groups. The first reading of the land use bylaw amendment to redistrict, the information from Shaftesbury residential to, direct control, I believe, and that was with respect to gravel extraction. Others, the overlay project, which is good news. We'll have lots of that kind of activity going on. And of course, the Apex discussion. Anybody else have another key item? Good to go. Okay, we're now going to take a short break. 20 minutes sounds a little convenient.
That way we can see the second period.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's say 3 minutes and we're back here at 7:28.
3 minutes. Virus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No talking.
Yeah, I watched that. I was told because there's some people here that don't want to know the score.
We're not in camp yet, we're just listening.
Yeah, everybody's already.
So Sam, I think, what we're gonna do in close is we're gonna do.
Hey, just a second, we're not